Jennifer Harper's music isn't just heard, it's felt deep in the soul. A singer, a songwriter, and activist, Jennifer weaves classical training with the healing power of sound to create music that moves hearts and transforms energy. Her performances have lit up legendary stages and inspired change at events like the March for Our Lives rallies, cementing her place as a voice for both art and purpose. But her journey goes beyond music. Through years of studying human design and gene keys, Jennifer has fused sound with spiritual science, guiding women around the world to awaken their true potential. Through her soul blueprint activations and sacred frequency recalibrations, she helps others tune their lives to clarity, balance, and light. This is Jennifer Harper, where music meets transformation. I'll see you in the episode. Welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. This is your host, Maureen Spielman, and I'm sitting with Jennifer Harper today. And I'm really, really excited. Jennifer came through Podmatch. I always like to give them a shout out. She's a singer songwriter, she's a sound alchemist, she's a practitioner of human design and gene keys. So, just a beautiful blend of where life has brought Jennifer. And I'm excited to get into the conversation to really dive into your work today. I think it's a beautiful body of work, and I'm just really excited to offer it to the audience too. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Yeah, I'm thrilled also to have been able to make this connection with you. It feels very
Yeah, I love it. When I first read your bio, I think that it was almost an immediate yes for me because of the blend that you had going on, and just with, having the background as a musician, but also really tapping into the voice. And so I'd love to hear what your attraction to voice or sound, or, do you kind of put all these things together as to why they're meaningful to you?
It's always difficult to put into words.
Mhm.
That's the connection, which is actually why I use my voice in an intuitive way, channeling music, sometimes easier way for me to express and to
Mhm.
capture the depth of what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing is through music. It just feels
Mm.
easier for me. It's always been a natural gift. And I do have, several albums that I've released of easy listening kind of pop music, but I'm a piano-based singer-songwriter. My earlier stuff is very throwback 70s sound. But with my album that I just released in September. It's called Soul Alive. And it was very clear when these songs were coming through that there was much more going on for me in terms of it's very common experience for musicians, singer-songwriters to feel that the music is that they're just the channel, that they're receiving from the universe. That's a common experience, and I've had that experience before. But this was different because there were very healing themes and profound awakenings that I was having in connection to what I was receiving. So it was like a whole other world started opening up for me with this last album. And my gifts were opening up, my spiritual gifts were opening up on a new level. So the two together allowed me to explore even more the potency of what was coming through and what it was exactly, how I could use this gift of my voice even more to help people.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
always been the focus for me has always been how can I create value? I come from a 30-year Buddhist practice background, and the idea of creating value with my art was always central to what I do. As in addition to how I was raised in Washington, D.C., very socially conscious, very conscious of the environment, and music with meaning, music with messages. This was always a part of just who I was.
Mm,
But
mhm.
it took on a whole new level. I think really it was my, people refer to it as spiritual awakening, which always sounds like a kind of a funny, it's kind of a funny term. And but there were so many levels to what I was going through and experiencing in this period. And it became very obvious to me that my voice was a kind of a medicine,
Yeah.
that I
Hmm.
could use it in more and more profound ways. And to be honest, I really feel that I'm just in the beginning of understanding this. And I think
Wow.
that we, as a society, are just at the beginning of understanding the power of sound to heal. So many ways that we can heal ourselves. There's so many modalities and all kinds of quantum healing things that are opening up. So
Yeah.
I think we're just like, we are the pioneers, this, in this generation or this time period, right? I mean, because
Hmm.
what's to come in the future is going to be so much more profound. But
Yeah.
it's clear to me that my voice has the ability to heal. And
Hmm.
when you know that, it's not about an ego thing. It's just about, okay, so what do I do with that? What am I supposed to do? And it's kind of like a surrender and a also a exploration, a creative exploration. So that's really what I started to do, was explore using my voice together with reading people's human design and gene keys.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
because that was sort of like a way in for me, an energetic way in. Like I could see the maps and it gave me sort of my bearings, and then energetically I would pick things up. I don't know whether it's like psychic or I think we all have these psychic abilities, right? But it was some kind of energy reading that was coming
Yeah.
through for me.
Okay.
I just started to practice it and trust it, and people were open to my guidance. I'm a projector in human design, if you know about human design. So people were open to receiving the guidance, and I started to trust more and more what was coming through, the messages that were coming through, and trusting more and more the guidance of my voice, where my voice wanted to go, and just using my voice as in an intuitive way for healing. And it just kind of grew from there. So it's at a certain point in its evolution, but I also, like I said, I feel like I'm just getting started in the ways that I can use this to help people, and just getting started in really owning the power of
Hmm.
this.
Absolutely. Do you feel when you began to receive these kind of soul inspired words and lyrics and the things that were coming through, that it required of you some sort of coming out process of your own because your work was shifting?
Oh, yes, definitely. Like I started, I would say, as far back as around 2019.
Mhm.
And it was interesting because it was pre-pandemic and I felt something coming. And I was having different kinds of experiences where I could only say, the only way I knew how to put it into words was that I was tapping into love. That's
Yeah.
how it felt. Like
Okay.
I would receive kind of this full body, head to toe chills and
Mhm.
feel this frequency. And I would be like out walking my dog or something, and I would feel these things, and I would be like, what is this? This is kind of freaky. Like what is happening?
Right.
Why am I like head to toe chills, like
Mhm.
feeling this? And all I could say, all the only word I could use to describe it was love. I was like, it's just love. Okay. So that's kind of where it began. And then I felt something shifting. I felt something coming, and I felt almost an urgency to seek people who might be able to
Yeah.
give me some answers or guidance or help me open up more. And so I began a journey at that point and seeking out some answers. And that, of course, led to more visions and more things happening, and things that I just figured, oh, I have a wild imagination. I'm a creative. I have a great imagination, and isn't this fun? It felt fun. And I actually was going to turn it into a story, a book. And I thought, oh, these are characters. And I couldn't really take it seriously as that these were guides coming through or
Mhm.
messages that were important. And it took a really long time.
Mhm.
like several years
Yeah.
of receiving, experimenting, questioning all the things. And it's really wasn't until I received feedback from people who I offered things to, and it was so profoundly life-changing for them, even
Amazing.
physically
Yes.
sometimes, that's when you say, okay, wait a minute, like I could laugh it off or question it or whatever, but if it's actually helping people,
Yes.
who am I to say this isn't real?
And get in the way. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. And there are so many different avenues you could go. And yet, this is the one you're being called to right now. And I appreciate you when you're saying we're at the beginning. And, I've read that there's waves of sort of kind of waves of people since the year 2000 who have come in. There's been three different waves I've heard, and I find it really interesting because it's easy for some, I am sure, to look and be cynical, like, oh, all these people are coming forward with these really beautiful gifts. And but it is like you were saying, it's just the beginning, and it's like the watering of the earth, and kind of all of a sudden, if you visualize everyone around the map, around the globe, they're popping up, and we're all here to sort of be paying attention for sure. But I think in many ways our culture is not used to it yet. And so marginalized is the wrong word, but it's almost like experimental in a way, in a beautiful way. And then you get that feedback, and the people that you see tell the next person. And that's what it's all about here on the podcast too, is okay, let's delve into what's happening for people, because I think in the way you described your journey too, it's very humble, and it's very like, listen, I I didn't know any of this was coming, yet it I allowed it, and
Yeah.
here I
And
am, and
that's
I'm
the
I'm
work is
Mhm.
that's the work is to get out of our own way,
Yeah. Mhm. And I've heard that before about, just kind of that ego self stepping to the side and allowing. And there's really beautiful information coming in. And when you talk about this newest album of yours, it seems to me just what we need. So talk about the divine timing of that. Okay, she's gonna, birth this and whatever it is, 2024, 25, and what a pristine, like perfect time for this work to come forward.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's an unusual blend because it's still in the easy listening genre of music, so it's kind of like I think it's a bit revolutionary in that way because it is music, but
Mhm.
it really is packed with medicine and
Yeah.
activation and healing if you allow yourself to receive the,
Yes. I love how you just called it medicine.
yeah.
That's so true. We think about, of course, we have our Western view of medicine, right? And then we've got plant medicine, and we've got, but I mean, anyone would be able to say, music has been medicine in my life, but it is so much in all the different genres of it. And I'll just leave it at that. It's a beautiful way to refer to what's coming through you for the offering.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's very different. I mean, that's like produced in a studio and I play the piano and all of it's much more, compositions. Whereas when I work with clients, it's much more just intuitively channeled voice as needed
Okay.
to move energy.
And then, is there ever the point where you're also working on your client's voice coming forward, or is it usually just more one-sided in terms of the medicine of your voice being applied to them?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because so many people were asking me that. Like,
Ah,
everybody wanted me to be able to be the person to help them with their voice because it seemed the most logical. And I'm like, I'm not a voice coach. I'm not, so I was kind of rejecting that avenue because I'm like, I'm not I'm not a voice coach. I'm not here for that. However, it was so wanted by different, people in positions of entrepreneurs who are seeing movements and different things that are need to show up online and different needs to use their voices in different ways, that I started offering sessions that were more focused on the voice and just to see, can I even do, like, can I do this? Because I'm not
Mhm.
doing traditional voice coaching.
Right.
I just focused the work on that on my individual sessions. And then I got invited to do a retreat, actually two different retreats. One was more of a workshop style, but it was over several days. And then the other was a full week retreat. And on both of those, that's exactly what I was hired to do, was to help women bring forth their
Mm.
voice,
Mhm.
and particularly in the second retreat to connect the womb to throat. That was
Okay.
really what was requested of me. And again, I kind of jumped in like, I guess I can, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I trusted it. I just trusted that if this work is real, then why can't I do that? So
Yes.
in total honesty, so I was kind of just, and I think it's the extent of surrender and trust that I bring in my work, that I've opened the creative channel so completely, that
Mhm.
gives a lot of permission in and of itself to people, to
And
women.
I also want to say, you said, you've been singing, you've been using your voice since a young age. And that's a life's worth of experience. And it doesn't have like a master's or a PhD letters behind it per se. I have a master's degree in speech language pathology. I did voice lessons with people with Parkinson's disease and things like this. I'm not a specialist in voice. And yet, maybe I am, and I just don't realize it in a very different way. And
Right.
so I love that, because you actually do have the experience, but it's how we that begs a whole new perspective of how we look at ourselves. And
Yes.
that's sort of, someone said in a group I was in yesterday, kind of, everything that we've done thus far in life, we sort of, even if it's, jobs we've held or things we've done that we don't think we're using any longer. Like I'm no longer hold that license to be a speech pathologist, but it kind of fertilizes the ground I walk on, and it informs the Maureen who's showing up in 2025. And I love that, because we're learning. Just, I think we as a society were raised just that there were two sides to a story, or two ways to look at things, this or that, and it's, as one teacher would, taught me, it's this and that and so much more. And
Yeah.
so that's the beauty of life too.
Absolutely. And once I was, on my feet in the room with the women, of course, that's when it's like everything that I know and everything that I've experienced and everything that I've done and all the things that make me who I am, plus my understanding of the gifts that I've received. It's just very flows out of me very naturally. And
Very,
it was the
yes.
trusting of that. And I think it was as I said, I think it was just the permission given to like let it all go and really surrender to the gifts that are coming through, that I carry that presence with me into the room, and that really helps women release to begin with. And then
Mhm.
I worked with my music. So I would sing my actual songs that are the activations from my album, and that helps set the scene. But then I would work one-on-one and just trusted what I was feeling and what I was hearing, and how to move the energy. And it was pretty profound, the
Yeah.
results. So, then you say, okay, I guess I can help women to express their
Right.
truth and their voice in a much more connected way.
Yeah,
And it's so beautiful to
it
experience.
really is. Yeah. Is it safe to say life has surprised you in its directionality and what it's brought to your doorstep?
Absolutely. And it makes total sense,
Yeah.
because if I look at my journey at this stage in my life, this was what I struggled with the most, was expressing my voice.
Mm,
And it took me overcoming so many different fears and just having courage time and time again to face myself and face the obstacles and face the fears and connect to my purpose in doing this. And that journey informs so much as well for me. Like just have such a rich history of understanding what it's like to have a blocked voice.
Yeah. Hmm. Would
So
you say, was there something particular that you would do when the fears would show up or that you learned to do to be with them? Was it, was it just making yourself do the thing and proving to yourself, or was it applying more compassion to yourself? Or can you say, or has that been a journey?
I think one thing that always helped me was that I didn't take it as a sign of this means I should stop. It was always a sign of this is where the work is. This is what I'm here to do.
Okay.
Such a
Hmm.
different perspective. It's like we can be overwhelmed by the fears and the obstacles and the blocks and really let them stop us.
Yes.
But if I were to do that, I could feel like my creativity shut down. I could feel my truth shut down. And I was like, well, I can't live like this. So I have a choice of like either live in misery and regret or face what's making me so fearful and face what
Mm.
I feel like is impossible. And
Yeah.
that became the journey. Like that became the life I wanted to live. I wanted to live a life where I could face my challenges. I wanted to live a life where no matter where I ended up, that I knew that I had faced things head on and I had kept evolving and kept growing and because the other route was just shutdown route. Yeah.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think
And
it's just a
yeah.
conscious choice over and over and over again to
Yes.
live my best life the best way that I knew how. And as I began my Buddhist practice as well, that philosophy really helped me a lot because it's all about seeing struggles as opportunities and knowing
Mm-hmm.
almost that like this is your sign that you're on the right path, not your sign
Yes.
that you're on on the wrong
Right.
path. That
Absolutely. Mhm,
Yeah, so
mhm,
that personal development became the point of it.
mhm,
It
mhm.
wasn't the point almost wasn't what can I do with my voice or what are my gifts? The point was how can I live a life the most true to myself? How can I live a life where I'm not shutting down from fear? How can I live a life where I express myself as fully as I can and I don't live to have regrets? Like that was a big driving factor, I think was
That's great. Yeah. And I think when we're able to see when we have the guiding questions like you had with Buddhism, or, I've studied spiritual psychology, it's when we have the guiding questions and then we begin to see ourselves with more awareness, we can begin to question and dissolve the limiting stories or the stories we're telling. And I think even listening to you right now, each time you do that, you open that door a little wider to what your path is meant to be. And, I've had times in this, sort of entrepreneur journey where, well, first of all, I worked in an office only for a few years after college, but that I'll think like, oh gosh, I would just go get the day job again, at the office or something like that. And then it's like, I'm, just like, no, it takes me back on the path of, no, I'm going because I know what I'm doing. And I don't think it's fluff. I don't think it's all for naught. I know I have a higher knowing that there's a reason for it. And like I was saying to you about your medicine, it's all medicine in a sense, right? In all these different forms. And think about that. We're using our voices to populate the degree to which that medicine can do its work, in a sense.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And believe me, I mean, there are times where I felt really challenged and tested
Mhm.
mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, I can't do this. I can't get up. I can't go forward. This is way too much. Let me just forget. Like, I would be better off if I never had even thought about any of this. You know,
Right.
I mean, like really can be
Yes.
really challenging.
Mhm.
And I think, like you shared, anybody who is taking the path of really their highest aligned path and opening to their gifts is going to, without a doubt, face these kinds of obstacles.
Yes.
That's the work,
Mhm.
I also dealt with, several traumatic situations from childhood that kept imprinting on me, and wondering what was I to do with that? How did that inform my journey? And maybe I was just better off not, it's like bark up a different tree or whatever. Like, let me just stop this path and do something that's easy. Like, why am I, like, when you have different traumatic experiences, sometimes you can wonder if you're like repeating situations that give you pain or something like that.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
am I recreating this
Yeah.
sense,
Suffering.
yeah, suffering or instability? You know what I mean? So it gets very deep. Like, you really have to like keep excavating, asking yourself these questions, and reviewing. And a lot of times it's like, well, this would be the easier way out.
Yes, yes.
I feel that it's not. When you know you have certain things that you want to express in your life and certain gifts that
Mhm.
you want to express, it's not the easier way to ignore them and to
Yeah.
pretend they don't
So,
exist.
so true. I'm really interested too to know, just to share with the audience some about the sacred sound alchemy, because you have using frequency to clear, heal, and align. And I want to talk about that a little bit because, years ago I had seen the movie Heal. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's Heal in all caps. And it's people going through different physical manifestation illness journeys. And I think the woman that's one of their primary characters they follow has cancer, and she goes to the vibrational therapist, and he's got like a whole sound room. But the power of frequency, what is to know about that?
Yeah. Well, again, that to me, we are in the beginning of that revolutionary time where we've evolved to a certain degree. There are different modalities. There are, like you're saying, this film Heal, and there's a lot of different frequency devices out there. Like, there's a lot of things available. I've even read that they're starting to use sound in hospitals, like you
Ooh, yeah.
mentioned. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And for me, it's so intuitive that, again, it's just hard to put into words. And I trust where my voice, what I feel energetically, what I see energetically, and how my voice moves. And I also feel it in my hand. I also work with my hands, so I feel the
Okay.
energy in my hand.
Mhm.
So, as I'm singing, a lot of times I'm moving energy as well with the hands. Again, I don't understand it from a scientific
Yeah. Mhm.
standpoint, except to
Mhm.
know that there is more and more research being done about how sound heals. And certainly, there are a lot of people who use instruments for sound healing, sound bowls, right? But
Yeah.
I just use my voice and my hands. So
Yeah.
it's
I
like
hear
those
that.
are my tools. I do believe if someone were to come to me with a physical illness, that I could use this modality and that I would see results.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I would not, as I said again, I'm at the beginning of claiming like the power of what it is
Mhm.
that I'm doing and being able to even use the words to describe it.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
but I would not, for example, my mother has been going through some health challenges, and I absolutely feel the inclination and the desire and the ability to have somebody lie there and sing to them and move the energy and feel that I could make certainly an impact and improve
Yes.
physical health. I have experienced some people having physical shifts
Mhm.
already, but this would be the kind of thing that I would offer to somebody just to see,
Sure.
much
Mhm.
like I did with the voice when people were requesting me to help them with their activating their voices. So
So
the same way, I would be like, well, I'm happy to offer my services to
mhm.
see how this goes to start
Absolutely.
off with,
Mhm.
and
Right.
then that could potentially open up a whole new avenue of healing with the voice. I have wondered, is there anywhere I can go to like study the frequencies of the voice and what is it exactly that I'm doing, but I haven't found
Mhm.
anything like that yet.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that for you because I'm thinking I've run across that before, and I had read something earlier this year just even about how we have just these energetic like signatures or profiles of my voice, your voice. And so that's really neat to me too because it has a resonance and we're going to attract the resonances. It's just it's the tip of the iceberg, right? And it
Yeah,
is being studied. I know that in some studies, I can't remember where I saw this, but even with cells in your body that have divided and they're kind of going rogue, they're not, when they hear a frequency or a sound, they will literally see them get in line and start to, it's almost like a magnet that comes back together.
yeah,
And I think it's important what you're saying about this, just inviting, I think a lot of listeners of this podcast are very open to new ideas, other ideas, all the things, but it's just that element of curiosity that can really, and if you hear something, like if someone hears something from you or in this podcast today, who knows where that
yeah,
information can be shared. And for those interested in the healing of ourselves, our collective, our planet, may this, I think when we just set that intention to begin with, may it just reverberate outwards.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what I understand is that it absolutely helps with the nervous system regulation.
Mm, mhm,
And
so important.
that helps with everything.
Yeah,
So, therefore, helping the nervous system is going to help with the physical, mental healing, whatever needs to be healed. So,
absolutely.
that is for
Mhm,
sure. And I
mhm,
also feel very strongly that I tap into, again, it's hard for me to put things into words, but I'll just say like ancestral energy,
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
ancestral trauma
Mhm.
energy, and can clear that as well. I don't like to make big claims because I feel
Yeah.
it still feels very awkward to make these big claims, but that's how it feels. That's what it feels like is coming through. That's what it feels like I'm picking up on. And I feel
Mhm.
like I'm clearing. I'm
Yes.
a lot of clearing of stagnant energy, a lot of clearing of ancestral trauma and getting right in there. And, with that clearing comes clearing of dis-ease, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So
Well, your
that's
work,
my scientific
I
explanation.
love it. I love it. It works for me. Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's like our time together today went really quickly, and I know we're nearing the end, but so you work with people one-on-one, it sounds like. And then where can we find your music? And can the music, just by like me listening to it, serve as activations for whatever it is my body is in need of as well, body, mind,
Yeah,
spirit?
yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Well, I also work in with groups and I'm
okay.
developing more and more programs and offers of my own. And so far I've been working with in collaboration with other people who have their own modalities and they're bringing me in to complement what they're doing and enhance
Yes.
the experience for the women on these retreats and workshops, summits,
I
things.
love it. Yep.
And I love doing that. Everything is at jenniferharpermusic.com,
Okay.
and you
Mhm.
can connect there to other parts of the website that show, how to ways to work with me.
Okay.
The music absolutely is healing in and of itself and can be used if you're a practitioner, can be used, whether in yoga class or any kind of wellness experience offering. The music can absolutely enhance the experience. I've had actually, this is a whole other story, but I have had one of my songs used by women who have gone through extreme trauma and worked with the energies of the song for a
Mhm.
whole day, just working with the song, with the energies, and making recordings of themselves singing and playing with the messages
So
in the
beautiful.
songs. And
Yes.
really, really incredible. It's actually a video that I'm going to put out soon.
Okay. Okay, good. I'll include everything in the show notes. And, Jennifer, I always ask at the end, we've covered a lot of topics. You've had so many messages of healing, sort of tapping into yourself and the path forward. If you were just to settle and listen to any message that might be coming through you for the audience right now, is there anything that wants to be shared?
Yeah, well, what I heard was
Mm.
believe your intuition and believe the voices.
You're a perfect example of it's kinda got chills of doing that. So thank you so much for being here. It was such a joy to be with you, and, thanks to the listeners for being here as always. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.